Good morning.
I don't know whether, and we've been having a bit of a heated argument about this, a
It's a
heated
debate. A
discussion,
debate.
just a debate about whether it is even fair within this debate. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about, with the Sarah Everard horrific murder, about the misogyny that is directed towards women, what can lead to some men acting in some of this way. Some men are just evil, but obviously, some men get to this point. And whether it is right and fair to say that there is mixed messages, I think, given to both women. I think women get lots of mixed messages in society. Women face sexism in society. We know that. That is spoken about. It is right that that is spoken about. But also whether it's fair to say there is a lot of mixed messages for young men. You're supposed to be masculine. Oh, no, you're not. You're supposed to talk about your feelings, but we need you to be a little bit more macho. We want you to go and ask the women to go out on a date with them. But actually, no, don't go and ask the women because they don't like that, because they like to be empowered. Hold the door open. Don't hold the door open. All of these different messages. Am I even allowed to say that, or are you both now going to come for me? Lauren?
I think there's 2 points that I always make when this argument comes up. The first is that, mostly when we talk about widespread misogyny within the public arena, and by that I mean just walking down the street. Of course, the argument comes back that it's not all men, and it's not all men, but it is always men. And that's a really big problem that we need to grapple with as a society. But also the problem that your co-presenter this morning faced on the way to work. The problem is not that they said, "Where have you been all my life?" The problem is whether or not, in walking past and ignoring, that person is going to become belligerent for you not engaging with their funny comment that's meant as banter. Are you in a dangerous situation as a woman because a man has said something that you do not wish to engage with because you're just walking to work? And that is not about misogyny. That is about safety in public spaces. And that's actually what the argument is about this week with the Sarah Everard stuff, is that this woman was walking home in a safe fashion, doing everything that she was supposed to do. She wasn't wearing revealing clothing. She was taking a route that she knew. And a policeman stopped her, the most legitimate stop that you can have in society, and told her that she had done something wrong and that she had to come with him. Every single woman that I know under those circumstances would have gotten in that car.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not about misogyny. That's about the public safety of women. And as soon as we pivot this to how do men feel about that, we ignore the fact that women are not safe on the streets from the police. There are men who were in that WhatsApp group with him who have yet to be suspended from the Met, but have been from other forces. The Met has a problem, a problem as a whole entity that Cressida Dick does not appear to be grappling with. And this is not about misogyny widespread within society, although I happen to believe that exists. This is about a woman's ability to walk home or even walk to work in the morning and not have someone wolf whistle at her, and not believe that that person could turn nasty about it if you just ignore it. Even down here, where I am at the moment, I was in a bar outside in broad daylight with 5 female friends, and a table of very drunk men next to us couldn't understand that all of us, fully attached women, wanted to not engage with their fairly lewd attempts to make conversation with us, and began to be quite irate about us not wanting to engage with the very drunk and uncouth men who were attempting to hit on us. And there's no way of avoiding that. That's what they were trying to do. That's exactly what they were trying to do. And this isn't about misogyny. This is about, how we educate men about how they deal with women in public spaces. And maybe we've done a really great job in the last 20 years, and this generation of boys will be different. But unfortunately, everything that I have encountered in a public sphere indicates that men from about the age of 28 up appear to have not learned these lessons yet, because it's happening too routinely. It's making us feel unsafe too often. It means we can't walk home with headphones on. We have to walk home with our keys in our hands. Why is it on us to do that? Why isn't it on men to behave better?
That's why, though, I do feel it's part of the debate that men are given these. I don't think it's the whole debate. I think it's a part of the debate, and I want to make that really clear. But I think that unfortunately, for for the women that will find that annoying and will be irritated by men, and you're right, if a man tries to approach a woman and she's not into it, she's not into it. That's it. That should be the end of it. But there will be some women, and this doesn't make women to blame, and I'm being really careful to say that, but even we see it in the media. I was talking about a reality show the other day where the women were saying, look, why can't these men man up and ask us out and take the lead in our relationship? And there is a message that, you shouldn't be pushy and you shouldn't approach girls, but on the other hand, if you don't, then you're not seen as the masculine one who women want.
Look, just to be really frank, there's also a massive divide between hitting on a woman on a walk home and going up to a woman at a bar and saying, I find you attractive, can I buy you a drink? And that woman having the perfect right to say no, and that man treating that as a response that is acceptable. Too often, that scenario doesn't result in the man feeling that he's been treated well, when a woman has a perfect right to say no, thank you very much. But what we're not really talking about that. What we're really talking about is, can I walk home and have some man feel that my walk home is his property to intervene because he likes my tits? That's not okay, and it happens far too often. And that's what we need to talk about.
I completely agree, and we need to sort of make those distinctions. Look, anyway,
and as soon as we pivot to can you hit on me in a bar, we stop talking about the real issue.
It's a completely different thing, and obviously, the sexes do need to interact, but you can tell, Cristo, as a man, because I really do believe that men are not that stupid, when a woman is not interested in you and you back off. It's that simple. So Lauren and her group of friends sitting with the blokes next to them, they should have said, right, fine, not interested, boys, thanks very much, okay? And then it stopped. But it doesn't. Men need to read the messages better.
Part of the problem, not the problem, not the only problem, part of the problem is that I think that men don't know how to act, which I think we all agree on. It's just how that's occurred.
Actually, I don't agree with you. I think men know exactly how to act. I think there's been enough public education in the last 40 years about not catcalling on the street, and they choose to ignore it because they're bigger and stronger than us. Frankly, that's enough,
Lauren,
and they should knock it off.
Yeah, Team Lauren.
I think that's just a massive gross generalisation.
But I think
it happens too often for it not to be a generalisation. That's the problem here. It's every single woman that you know. Every single one of us has had this happen to us more than once. And that means it's not a gross generalisation. It's the norm, and it's not okay.
I don't disagree that happens, and I'm not saying that that's acceptable that happens, but I do think that as a society and as a people, we give completely mixed messages to men about what they are supposed to be. And as I said before, are they meant to be completely touchy-feely?
Cristo, you can be both.
Yes,
it is possible.
But sometimes they are criticised for being one and then not the other.
Oh, poor little you've been criticised. Look, men are not that stupid. You know how to. You know the sense.
You're presuming a fairly baseline IQ across the male section of the species
so
here.
Are you. You're saying that too.
No, I'm saying that they're behaving badly. I'm not saying that they're unintelligent. It's completely different. They're choosing to behave badly. They're choosing to use being the more powerful of the two sexes to behave badly, and that is not all right. And pandering to the you just don't know how to behave allows men to behave like this. They know how to behave. Every man is taught in school not to be a complete tool around women. And it happens too often because they're ignoring it.
Then why do we have the highest way, the most likely way in which you are going to die is, as a man, you are going to top yourself? There is something going on. And look, I think we're all arguing.
And yet the most likely way of dying as a woman, in terms of a murder, is by someone that you know or are related to and who is a man.
Absolutely.
And that is, but
so we're all arguing here for the same outcome.
And it's because we don't put enough of these men in prison. We don't prosecute them well enough. We don't investigate well enough. And every headline this morning is indicating why. It's because the police forces are riddled with men who do not care about violence against women, who are leading these investigations. We have a system that is completely overwhelmed when it comes to technology and is therefore not able to prosecute on the basis of evidence that comes from technology. And male-led institutions, and I do still call them a male-led institution because Cressida Dick is about as useful as a chocolate fire guard. Male-led institutions are not able to see that unless they prosecute these things with really severe consequences for the men involved, men will feel that there is absolutely no repercussion for them behaving this way, and they will continue to do so. In the same way that if you were to commit fraud because you felt that you would get away with it, more people would do it.
And
if they felt that they would not become after, more people would do it. And the same thing happens with violence against women.
What is going to, do you think, restore any of the public faith in the Met Police? I have to say that their reaction to this has been absolutely... we were talking about this earlier, and I think this we will agree
appalling.
on. I've not heard a word from the Met Police to say even just the basic stuff, like, you know, when they were talking about the reaction, if you're a woman who is scared when you're being arrested, you
hail down a bus.
Hail a bus.
Honestly.
I didn't hear one piece of advice saying, you know what, if you're a guy and you're walking home and you see a woman kind of cross the road, or make it clear that you're walking your dogs or whatever else. It was all directed at women, and it was even the most practical advice you've ever heard.
The Met have done everything except throw up on themselves in public this week. What's got to happen is, firstly, the leadership of the Met has got to essentially all be sacked and never work in public life again. Secondly, the government has got to stop divorcing itself from what the Met has been up to. It's not okay to just say, well, it's a Met force, technically they fall under the Met. No, the buck stops with the Home Secretary. She's got to take more decisive action than she is at the moment. And finally, we have to begin a conversation about how public institutions can be held accountable for gross failures like this, in a way that sees some genuine change. You know, when they reopened the violence against women and girls consultation earlier this year, the UK government were absolutely flooded, inundated with evidence from women and girls across this country and from organizations saying no one is doing well enough. Absolutely no institution is doing well enough. And we need to talk about that very publicly. Okay. And the Home Secretary needs to be front and center of that and not divorcing herself from that. But we also need public policy changes like opening the night tube again. Uber has essentially seeded London. We have to have the night tube for women to be safe to get home. And also
Uber as well now is every time that you go on that app now, it's now double, triple the price it used to be, because they're trying to get back the congestion charge they have to pay. So it's really...
Which means it's the same as the black taxis,
exactly.
Which means that you don't want to use the app. So yeah, we need the night tube back. And there's absolutely no indication from Sadiq Khan over the course of the last week as to when he might be reintroducing the night tube.
But again, if we're talking about the uselessness, listen, we must just move on because the time is against us. But just a quick preview, please, of the Tory party conference. What are you looking forward to? Highlights and lowlights?
Well, this is the first time since 2009 that I won't be attending, because obviously I'm coming back from a red list country, and I therefore have to spend 11 days outside of the United Kingdom, because they have a really unbelievably stupid red listing system, which I read in The Guardian this morning is probably going to be jacked in by the end of October, with the exception of 9 countries, which I very much hope is the case. The Conservative Party conference, the Tories are moving into conference in a very solid position when you consider the unbelievable mess that the country is in. They are not losing ground with the public over petrol shortages, over food shortages, over HGV driving problems. And I find it both astonishing and also very interesting, because there was a big headline in the New Yorker at the end of the week of the Labour Party conference, basically saying that there is no effective opposition. And I think that that's right. Keir Starmer is failing to hold the government to account, because without effective opposition, the public will just say, oh, well, they're trying their best. It's been a difficult year. Instead of saying, no, you didn't prepare well enough for this. How did you not see that, with an aging workforce in the HGV community, we were probably going to need transitional immigration arrangements in order to get to the point where we didn't run out of HGV drivers, in addition to not issuing any licenses in January of this year, in addition to introducing the IR35 tax changes that meant that so many of the guys who are driving HGVs chose not to go back to work after the pandemic and instead retire out of the business. The government are not being held to account for some very large failures in relation to this, because the opposition can't do it, and instead is busy writing 14,000-word treaties on the future of the Labour Party,
which is just.
And so heading into party conference, the Tories are actually in a remarkably strong position, which in theory they shouldn't be.
It's unbelievable. It really is.
It's extraordinary.
Lauren,
and the Conservative Party will begin to eat its young if it doesn't have some good opposition soon. So we need to get back to that.
Laura McKevitt, really, really good to have your company this morning. Former UK Special Advisor. Coming up, well, you've been calling in your droves about what you've been hearing this morning. We'll get to some of those in just a moment here on Talk Radio.